Hello, welcome to the Change Guru. This is a place where we get our change on. And speaking of change, we are going into the season, if you're watching this in real time, where food, glorious food, is everywhere. You know, it is the season for eating. And I thought for this week's blog, it would be fun to share some ways to let food be a pleasure and not be a punishment. I want to share with you 5 tips that I use for not overeating, especially during the holidays. Now, these tips are not going to be to move your body, which I highly recommend. I do for myself. I always walk at least 30 minutes a day, and I do my yoga practice about 5 to 6 times a week, sometimes for just 5 minutes, sometimes up to an hour and a half, depending on what's going on. But moving my body is a really important part of that, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about any kind of particular diet. The framing that I'm going to use is more psychological thinking, what goes on in my brain and what seems to be working for me year after year after year without really thinking about it. So let's get to it. I don't let myself get hungry, ever. What a privilege, right? How cool is that? But I make sure that I eat at least 2 meals a day, every single day, sometimes 3 meals a day. So that means I always eat breakfast, I always eat lunch, and if there's a feast that's going to happen that evening, it means I'm not going to either be cooking or be sitting up at a table feeling absolutely ravenous and hungry. Because I move my body every day, because I'm working, I need my blood sugar to be high. So I think of myself as a car. A car needs fuel, needs energy to keep on moving. So I make sure that I am fueled up by having a good breakfast, lunch or some snacks, and then my meal. So I don't go to the table just starving and ready to just completely inhale everything that was on the table. So that's my recommendation. Eat your breakfast, eat your lunch, eat some snacks, just stay fueled up so that by the time you do have to sit down, you are not going to just shovel in everything. Did you hear that snort? That was shoveling. That was what I mean by shoveling. None of that. I don't diet. I don't count calories. I have no idea how much I weigh. I don't deprive myself with food, and during the times when I have dieted during my life, I find myself so obsessing over food, and they never last with me. What I do is I look at food as an absolute pleasure, and during this time of year when there are some special goodies that we kind of only have at this time, I don't use that as a license to eat every single thing in sight. I use it to just enjoy. I look at my food as a pleasure, not as a punishment. So that is a major thing. I don't look at this as food as good or as bad. It's just there. It's my fuel to eat. It's not diet food. It's not anti-diet food. It's just food. I know as an American that holidays, especially like Thanksgiving, they're kind of traditionally used as a license to stuff ourselves, to get so stuffed that you're almost like in a coma by the time that you're finished with a meal. And I actually now look at the idea of stuffing myself as very damaging. I don't think that is something that ever fills us with feeling good. I think it's a very dysfunctional way of looking at food, and I'm happy to say that's not an attitude that's been passed down to my kids at all. So I think if you are going to the Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever holiday table with the idea that you are going to stuff yourself, it is kind of cool to look at what am I actually trying to fulfill here. Our bodies don't like feeling that full, and it's nothing that we ever are really grateful for when we're finished. So I think that the idea of feeling like this holiday season is about pushing our guts to the limit is twisted, dysfunctional, and a cycle that we can actually break right now. I know my triggers. I know the things that for me are going to get me out of a mindful mentality with my food, so I will eat the wrong things or eat stuff that too much of something that's not good for me. There's two triggers. One is if I'm drinking, I will just kind of, just randomly eat. I kind of lose my consciousness of that. So it's really helped to identify that trigger in me so I know, hey, if I'm going to drink a glass of wine here, I'm just going to be mindful of what I eat. The second trigger is kind of a funny one, and that comes about right before I'm going to get my period. I'll be in a mood to like consume a whole grocery aisle of chips. I get this real craving for salty, fried things, I could just eat a barrel full of them. I find this interesting because it just seems to happen. Sometimes I honor it and other times I don't. And I kind of feel like since my periods are probably going to be coming to an end soon, it's kind of interesting and kind of fun to indulge it. I never feel good with it afterwards. So that's my trigger. At least I know my trigger, that certain times of the month are going to make me more prone to want to eat. So knowing your triggers is such a really important tool. For other people, triggers can be people, and especially during this time of year when you might be with people who push your buttons. So sometimes, just eating a lot or whatever, you can take out your feelings about that through food. So just knowing that what is going to be the trigger can at least help you make an informed decision of whether you're going to honor that trigger or whether you're going to figure out a way to bypass it. And my fifth tip, I think, is my coolest tip, and it's really remembering that food is about nourishment. It's what it is, bottom line. And so if you find that you overeat during this time of year or in certain situations, great question to ask yourself is, what in me needs to be nourished? What can I do to nourish myself just that little bit more? It's different for everybody, but for me, my thing is I love to read. I love to read real books. So I always make sure this time of the year that I go to the library or the bookstore. I've got real books in hand. Almost all the books that I read on my Kindle are generally work-related books, so I have them really easy, but there is just something about a book, just a nice, real old school book that absolutely feeds my soul. And during the holiday season where my workload starts easing up a bit and I take my break, I find that having a book gives me that feeling of nourishment. For you, it might be something different. Maybe you can get lost in knitting, or you can just have music on and that just fuels you, or having candles, but just an emphasis on something in your life that brings you that absolute feeling of nourishment. What is it? What are you really, really hungry for? Now, I'm curious, has anything that I said resonated with you? Is there anything in those tips that is something that you can take to the holiday table and use in a way that's going to really serve you well? I'd love to know. So please post what you learned in the video below and in the comment section below. And obviously, if you've got some little idea or trick or something that really works for you, I'd love to know that too. So please join in the conversation below. Now, if you like my videos, I'd love you to be on my newsletter. Come on over to thechangeguru.net, and every week or two, I give you just some inspirational wisdom to help you really rock life from midlife into the far beyond. All right, enjoy your food. We're so lucky to be able to have food. Oh my God, it's so fortunate. Enjoy your family and friends, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much. Hey, my book, Gray Hair Adventure, Things I Learned About Life When I Stopped Dyeing My Hair, is available on Amazon. Just put Gray Hair Adventure into your country's Amazon search bar and enjoy.